This is Adam Barley from ZeroOne, and part of a Zoom call where we danced for a while, got out of our heads, and then talked as honestly and deeply as we could about issues that come up around movement practice. If you want to learn more, you can check out events and coaching support packages on the website or on Facebook or on YouTube. And please do click like and share and comment and all those social things that are super helpful. Pass it on to your friends. And I really wish for you that you find some good ways to use movement practice to help you in these very strange and often difficult times that we find ourselves in.
I want to tell you a story. I've just moved my parents down here. My parents are getting on, and we realized it was time to get them close to one of us siblings. It was clear that I was living in the right place for them to come and live near here. So we found a house for them 10 minutes drive up the road and moved them in on Wednesday, and they've been staying here, and my sister's here with her son, and there's a lot going on. Our house is very full every day, and all the sort of family dynamics are going on, and yesterday afternoon it just got too much for me. And I needed to explode. There was nowhere in the house I could really go and dance. Every room's full of people, and I was like, get me out of here. And I got on my bike and I cycled up to some woods that I like to go to and move in and pray in. And God, that was difficult. Like I've been using movement as a practice for 33 years. Wow. That's quite a long time. 33 years. And there are times still when it's really difficult. But I stuck at it, I stuck at it. And after a while, my sort of stuff started to release, and I went from furious to weeping in pain. And then I had a bit of a breakthrough that was exciting for me, and I felt good. I cycled down the hill pretty fast, got back home, and was able to speak some things that I needed to say to everybody in a way that wasn't totally overcharged with my stuff from my childhood. And I am proud to have been able to do that, and incredibly grateful to all the people over the years who have taught me, supported me, encouraged me to use movement in that way. And unsurprisingly, I would put Gabrielle Roth absolutely at the top of that list. And what an inspiration she's been, Like, I went from this very, very stuck childhood. I mean, really, it was like, but it wasn't even like that dramatic, it was like death. It wasn't even obviously stuck. Like everything seemed to be very nice. And then under the nice, normal, middle-class upbringing, underneath that was this very stuck layer. And then underneath that is like hell. It's like violence and like, but all under the carpet. Yeah. English, nice middle-class English family. That's what, it's fairly standard issue. And so when I discovered movement, it was like, wow, it's like, and I basically spent about 30 years letting the volcano kind of erupt, and it all seemed like really great, and it was really great. It was exactly what I needed. But in 2014, I did a plant medicine ceremony, during which I got this massive download about truth and the nature of truth. I made a film of it, I literally got downloaded this script and told to make a film about it. And so I did. Any of you who saw that film that I put out 9 years ago, well, 7 years ago, 7 years ago, that was that. And then my life started to unravel. And all the ways in which I was lying to myself suddenly started coming up. I had no idea. And it was like, okay, next layer of unpeeling Adam. And in 2016, I got this insight about this mathematical equation that was like, whoa, that tells me something I hadn't seen before about movement practice and about this kind of mapping of human being. Because it basically told me that whilst I understood that energy moves in waves, I suddenly started to take notice of the seabed. And that the seabed, there was the maths that told me this, but then I went and like looked at the waves breaking for ages. I was like, God, I've never taken notice of the seabed in this situation. You've got waves breaking, and the seabed is actually what's making it happen. And the seabed is like this force that never moves; it stays still, essentially, and makes everything happen. It makes that transformation happen. And I was like, that's exactly like the zero in this equation that I found. And there I could see it. And so I started to see reality in a new way. I started to see it as this cyclic process of 4 stages that was all infused by the ZeroZone. And the ZeroZone is present throughout, inside it all, and the context for it all. And I started dancing that equation. And then I was in a workshop with Marc Sylvestre, 5 rhythms teacher, wonderful 5 rhythms teacher in France. I was in a workshop with him, and he had us all like he has all dancers that were stuck in a box, 1 meter square. And then after a few minutes of really suffering inside this stuck box, break out. And I had this experience all over again of breaking out of a box, breaking out of a stuckness. But when I was on my way home, I had this moment where I stepped off a train. And as I stepped off the train, I could feel in my heart, oh my God, I've left the 5 rhythms. That's it. I've gone. I could just feel it. And then I was like, shit, that means I've got to start something new. That's so difficult. And I spent the next year figuring out how to do that. And I tell you, if I'd realized how personally challenging it would have been for me to do that, I don't think I would have done it. I don't know what I would have done, but I don't know. It's been so challenging for me. It brought up all the extremely early trauma from my life. All my like childhood trauma all happened before I could learn to speak. So that's why it was also deeply buried. And so all that stuff started coming up when I released ZeroOne. I felt incredibly vulnerable, pre-birth stuff. And I start all these ways in which I had been overriding my sensitivity in the way I was doing movement practice, in the way I was teaching movement practice. I was overriding myself. And I didn't start to see it until the last few years, and it's been like, wow, that's been really full on and continues to be very challenging. And I'm seeing ways in which I just lied, not really lied, but like pretended to myself, so I like adopted this persona of teacher, and then started believing the persona. And so I've really been dismantling all of that. And it's very much still work in progress. But I do see that I'm able to take it when people challenge me. I'm more interested in the truth than I am in winning now, which is actually a big change for me in my personal relationships. I'm more interested in the truth than I am in being right. And that's a really big change for me. I've started noticing this character. I think of him as like It's like this sort of deep piece of programming in me. It's like this colonial English man, the white man, you know. It's like, God, I can feel that guy in me. This Victorian, entitled, know-it-all. God, all these things that I just never saw about myself, and I am seeing them, and I guess that is a good thing. I know that's a good thing. It's not very easy, but it's a good thing. And I'm listening in my movement practice in a way that I was encouraging you to do just then. You know, to listen to the silence, even when there's music going, and to feel the stillness even when you're moving, and to sense the spaciousness that we're all bathed in, even when we're surrounded by our bookshelves, etc. So that's how I come to be sitting here with you right now. And you know, I'm aware that I'm aware that we're in like really interesting times. And one of the other reasons why my teaching has changed, why I'm much less pushy. I'm aware that it's so easy for us to override our sensitivity, and because we're all maxed out in a way that we were not 10 years ago, certainly 20 years ago, we were just not. We could take a massive load of activation 20 years ago in a way that we just can't now. There's not everybody individually, but as a collective, we're kind of burnt out with a number of things. And I think one is the growing awareness of the dead end that we're coming to, or the cliff face that we're coming to in terms of our relationship with the natural world. Now, the natural world will be fine. I started off as an environmental scientist, and that's what I did at university. The natural world will be fine. It'll just regenerate, but we might not be. And for, you know, maybe all of you know that already, but you know, I think we're collectively aware that we're really in trouble in terms of our life support system, or at least our ability to have a planet that's a joy and a beauty to live on. I think the depth of grief around being the cause of and in the midst of the sixth great extinction on this planet is too much for us to even really. It's just too much. It's too much to speak of, let alone even feel. You know? And then there's what this technology is doing to us, and that the flood of information that we're all taking in on a daily basis. Do you know that every time you take in a piece of information, your nervous system reacts in the same way that it does when it's scared? When something scares you, there's a slight activation of your nervous system when you take in something new. And we are flooded right now. And so there's a way in which we can't take very much activation in a way that wasn't true 20 years ago. There's a huge need for like settling and calming down. And I'm certainly feeling that, and I'm sure it's partly my age. I'm 57, but it's also in the collective. We are maxed out and burnt out, and in desperate need of a rest, like a really good deep rest. That's why the first lockdown was kind of a relief to so many people. But now that's a whole thing, isn't it? I don't think it's not a relief anymore, is it? And so I'm aware that there's, like last time we did this Q&A session, whenever it was, a couple of months ago, the sense I got was that the most common thread amongst you was around how to deal with difficult feelings, how to use movement practice in a way that's functional and healthy, to digest, process, release go through, learn from, integrate difficult feelings, strong feelings. There was a lot of grief, a lot of anger around, a lot of fear around. And I would love to hear from you. Like, where are you at? What's up? Are you using movement practice at all? Like I did yesterday in the woods? If not, do you want some help to do that? And what's in your way? What comes up if you are using movement practice in some way? Are you getting stuck with something? What's working for you and what's not working for you? And yeah, those kinds of questions. What's going on? And how can movement practice help? And no doubt during this next bit of time we have, I will also come to speak a little bit about when movement practice is not the right thing, because it's not always. We need other things too. But let's hear from you a bit. What's up? Tell us something. And when you want to speak, if you could just sort of wave, make your hand waving quite vivid so our attention goes to you easily, because otherwise it can be hard to see whose lips are moving. Christina.
In the last 2 months, but maybe I resonated when you said that when you begin to create a new thing, stuff came up, and just like what I understood is just like you became more authentic, and I think this is what's going on with me. So in the last 2 months, I just have another look about some relationships, about some people. So 2 people left from my life emotionally. I mean, I let them go. One of them is quite recent. So actually this morning I did dance with you offered some mixes. So I did dance with the grief one, which thank you for that. Well, this is where I am now.
Okay. How was that?
I could release some. I need to do it some couple of times again. And actually, the reason why I came this evening is the thing that when a movement practice is not enough. I'm really interested in that. Find that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. That's a subject that's close to my heart as well, because when I first started doing movement practice, using movement as my practice, because I'd been in a sitting meditation for 10 years. But when I started using movement, part of what I was very stuck in was a very stuck marriage. And I just emulated my family of origin, of course. And neither of us really wanted to be in it. And that marriage broke up. But then now I've got 3 kids with 3 different mums. And the third relationship started to unravel in the last few years. So we broke up 5 years ago. And I had to finally go, okay, something's not right here, Adam. You're missing something. What is it? Why are you repeating the same patterns? Even though you're using this movement practice really diligently, there must be something you're missing, Adam. And when I looked deeply into that question, what came was, you're not talking. You're not speaking the truth. And there was plenty of movement and plenty of embodiment, but I wasn't speaking the truth. I wasn't including in my practice anything to do with speaking, not in any serious way. I wasn't joining my movement somatic experience together with my left brain languaging part of myself. And so I think that's, for me, that's one thing. And I've now begun to make that a very important part of my practice. I consider it part of my practice, the way I speak to people. And so that's one thing. I think we have to learn to speak like we dance. When we dance, the body doesn't lie. It doesn't matter. Like, even if you're trying to hide your nature while you dance, what shows is you're trying to hide your nature. If anyone's got eyes to see, that's what you see, is that someone's trying to pretend. The body doesn't lie. It just cannot. And I think we have to learn to speak like that too. We have to learn to speak the truth. And not just the truth from a kind of heady place, not just our opinions, but really speak from the heart. To speak the truth from the heart. It's a slightly different way of talking. And it requires a kind of listening and a kind of humility in it while we speak. And the any dance practice, you know, like I'm including all the, like there's huge numbers of spin-offs from Gabrielle Roth's work, and then other threads as well of conscious movement practices. There's so much of it around the world now. And all of them, as far as I'm aware, and I've done quite a few, teach the same thing, which is how to be in that mixture of listening and communicating, listening and expressing, like receptive and expressive at the same time. And I think we have to learn to speak like that, with that level of honesty and that level of listening. So that's one thing. And then I would say the other thing is that if we don't learn and practice how to be embodied when we're completely still, then we miss a whole level of subtlety and kind of very nuanced inner experience. So I went from a sitting meditation to a movement meditation, and I just literally swung from one to the other. And now I sit every day as well. And I think that's really valuable. And not that that's right for everybody all the time, but I think there is a time, and certainly I'm at that time in my life now, where movement is not enough. I need to speak, as I was saying, and I need to be still, as I'm describing, and to really practice being still. And oh my God, when I'm sitting still, I am shocked at what a jumping bean my mind is. Like, I'd swear it's worse than it was when I was in my 20s and I was doing the sitting meditation. It might just be that I was more unconscious then, I think. But it's alarming. Oh my God. Wow. So those are the two main things I would say. And then I think also maybe I'll add a third, which is that there are times when we just need help. And it might be to do with movement, or it might be seeing a homeopath, or it might be talking to a therapist, or it might be getting a shamanic healing session, or it might be going to hug a tree for a while, or it might be writing a letter to your dad saying all the things that you haven't said and then burning it, or sending it, or reading it aloud to him. Who knows? But yeah, I do think those are three particular areas that I reckon that I don't really count as movement practice, but I think we really need. How does that land with you, Christina, when you hear all that? What resonates with you?
When you said speaking the truth, I really resonated. And but what I heard also is that I was thinking about myself. When I dance, it's the truth. It's my truth for me with my feelings, my body, my sensations. So it's my truth with me. And when I speak my truth, it's my truth in the relationship, something like this. So it's all, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Christina.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Deepa.
I can share that really, I've been dancing for like 20 years, but the experience of really being in my body only came when I started to do sitting meditation. It really has changed everything for my movement as well. So I'm doing more sitting meditation than dancing, but I know that dancing is like something I can always come back to. And at the moment, I usually use it to cheer me up. I don't use it so much to go through difficulties, but
Which one? You use dance to cheer you up?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Just to have some fun and be alive, but I'm not using it so much for the difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
If it's difficult, I just sit. I find that easier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Great. I totally had goosebumps when you said that, Deepa. Yeah.
I was surprised. I was really surprised, but so it is.
Great. Thanks for saying. Yeah.
I came here. Sometimes I really don't know why I do things, but I'm going to start an online program tomorrow. It's for 3 months to find out where my next job should be. So I know that I need to change my job probably this year, and I'm embarking on this journey, and I can feel that all my buttons are pressed at the moment. And it means I need to go out into the world, I need to make up my mind, and it feels very exciting. Sometimes it feels good, but then lots of energy comes and I get sometimes I'm a little bit crude, too much energy, and I'm out there and I'm not taking care of, the energy of other people. So maybe you can say something to that as well.
What would be the question?
What do I do with all this energy that comes up when I'm ready for changing things?
Okay, great.
Energy, and it just feels too big, and not. I feel I'm not very sensitive to others. It feels great for me, but not so great maybe for other people.
Okay, great question. So my attention is drawn to the way that I've been practicing for the last few years, which is what I very briefly took you through, of being aware of stillness while I'm moving. And so there's a way in which I'm completely centered and quiet whilst I'm in the midst of releasing and maybe shouting. And so I'm practicing being high energy at the same time as being very still. And for me, that's been very useful. And I'm more able to be measured in the way that I express myself verbally with people, even if I'm feeling a lot, if I'm in a very intense feeling state, like I was when I came back from my dance in the woods yesterday and spoke to my family. And I was still feeling a lot, but I was able to listen and measure. And so for me, maybe you could find a way to integrate your sitting practice with your movement practice. Yeah. That might be useful.
Okay.
That's essentially what I've done.
Okay.
And I found it amazing. I found that I'm much less going for peak experiences. B, I'm much more aware of subtlety and nuanced levels of my experience. C, I'm much more curious about whatever just is happening right in the moment and not being attached to any particular form or process or destination, but just really being in the moment. And fourthly, I'm more measured because I've got this like 1 foot in grounded, still, balanced, centered. whilst the other one is going. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, and Deepa, good luck. Anyone who wants to wish her good luck, just give her 2 thumbs up.
Lovely.
May it unfold beautifully for you. Yeah.
Thank you, Adam.
And of course, there is, maybe to you, Deepa, but to everybody as well. I do think there's a place for just when you're really full of energy, there's a place for just throwing all caution to the wind and just letting go. Sometimes, it's like you just need a good dump, where our emotional body just needs to kind of just the physical body just needs to go to the toilet once a day at least. The emotional body needs to go let go too. God, our neighbors are so quiet compared with us. I think, what happens to them over the course of years? What happens to people over the course of years when they go through years without shouting or screaming or stamping and waving their arms around and really cathartic? I think we all need a good old, some people are more emotional than others, naturally, but everybody needs a bit of a let go every now and then, don't they? Thanks for bringing that up, Deepa. Great question.
Thank you.
Cornelia?
I still sometimes don't know so good what to do on this day, on these days where I feel shut down, tired. In my mind is, move so that your whole system gets on tour. But sometimes I have the feeling that then I move, okay, then my blood pressure, everything goes higher and I'm not so tired anymore. But it's also like I step over something, what maybe is inside, what makes me so tired and stuck. But if I try to sit, I can sit for hours, but I'm dissociation,
dissociating. Yeah.
I don't think anything. I just sit there, but I'm not aware somehow. And I don't have the real good tool how to get out of this stuck.
Another great question. Thank you, Cornelia. And I love how it's a sort of counterpoint to what you were bringing, Deepa. So this has been another real deep eye opener for me in the last few years. As one of the people who helped me sort of shape ZeroOne and give it some sense of direction and form. A somatic experiencing therapist called Karen Mellon, who was quite brilliant. And it was her who really said, Adam, you're overriding yourself when you move almost all the time. You need to slow down. You need to really slow down and start noticing what's going on underneath all the drama. And I have found that to be quite extraordinary. And this is what I would say to you, Cornelia, is you may well be right that you're missing something when you sort of push yourself to use a lot of movement to create a sense of being energized. And it may be that there's a whole deeper layer. This was certainly true for me. There was a whole deeper layer of, because through all those years of dramatic high energy movement practice that was really my style of practice and my style of teaching, there was something that I was missing. And it was basically my very, very early trauma. And it's like my very early trauma created a sort of another layer on top of itself that was very dramatic and passionate and fiery, but it wasn't it. It was something, and it was great that I went through it. I needed to go through it. I needed to let rip after being so stuck for the first 25 years of my life. And slowing down. And so this is what I would really say to you, Cornelia, maybe get curious about what happens when you don't try to energize yourself, but go into the experience of being tired using movement, but not movement as in, okay, now I've got to move, but movement as like I've spent whole sessions on our sofa or on the beautiful rug that we have on the floor, and I just lie on the rug and I'm often curled up when I'm doing this, when I'm working with that layer of myself, the very, very young. I'm curled up in fetal position a lot of the time, and I often have a hand like up on my face like that, and I just move a little bit, just very like a little bit. My hands move, and then my spine just moves a bit, and my head curls in a bit or straightens out a bit, and I move my feet a bit, and it's like little movements followed by periods of genuinely resting, like genuinely resting. Little bit of movement followed by genuine rest. And sometimes a whole session will go by like that. And I've barely changed position, just tiny bit. And I think that's really, really opened something up in me very, very deeply. That's still opening up. It's like really work in progress. Mm-hmm. And I'm really glad that I've started doing that and been doing that. Yeah. And according to Karen, the somatic experiencing therapist I mentioned, that a lot of us are, and it's, I might say actually, it's not just according to her, I can see it too. I can see that a lot of us are carrying very early trauma and from our very early years, like often birth and pre-birth stuff. And if we override that vulnerability and sensitivity consistently for years, we're likely to make ourselves ill, or at least injure ourselves physically. And there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and a place for big, wild movements, and there's a time and a place for listening to what's small and subtle. And that our very, very early experience is very intimately connected to our sense of the divine and our connection to the spirit world. And yeah. So it's not just about regressing to an infantile state. It's intimately connected to our spirituality as a felt, sensual, real, tangible, embodied experience, not just spirituality as in some kind of New Age beliefs, an actual embodied experience. It's so tied into our very, very early experience, because that's, at that very early time, we hadn't yet separated from our somatic experience of the divine. That happened a bit later. That happens a bit later, developmentally. So, great question, Cornelia. Do you feel like that landed with you, or is there something else?
And I will learn more to trust, to be still, because once I had this depression, and when I get tired, this being afraid said something like that comes again. I'm sure, kind of sure, I'm good now, but I did the last times when I was so tired. I with this long breathing out, to exhale longer than to inhale. And that made me more calm and just, and I concentrate to my breath. And that was, that took this heaviness away.
Mm.
Like I care much more, like a mother for my little child.
And, you know, speaking about depression, not just to you, Cornelia, but, you know, it's such a common experience for people at some point in their lives. And it's, you know, it's literally something is being depressed, down pressed. And it's always feelings, you know, some quality of feeling that is being pressed down. And that's exhausting because feelings are strong. And to keep them down in any way takes a lot of energy. And so partly it's that it takes a lot of energy to keep them down, but also our feelings are a big piece of our fuel and our energy source in our lives. And so we're cutting off our energy source as well as using our energy to cut off that energy source. So, you know, yes, it goes very deeply with tiredness. And I think often when we're tired, there's a deep well of grief underneath it, or an unexpressed rage that is just too scary for us to feel and show and allow to be expressed. Yeah. Thanks, Cornelia.
I wanted to comment, I don't know if it's a question, but what struck me with what you share at the beginning, and I think, you know, Christina was referring to it in a different way, not pushing and not insisting and being right, and allowing so-called the rightness of our own experience at the moment to emerge. I think Christina was mentioning it, what is right for our own experience. It just struck me that is just a feminine, masculine way of being, and that what we are giving really right now a voice is the feminine way of being that has been repressed for all of us, that was not allowed to be giving a voice, and that has shut our vitality and the life force that we all have. And so by you saying, I'm not going to push, and you're going to allow, this is the feminine way of being, which is create wholeness and bring wholeness to our experience and tenderness, and and help us to really cope and digest our emotions in a way that is not so violent and extreme and dramatic.
Yeah, thank you, Noah. Yeah. And when we're really functional is when, as you were demonstrating with your hands, is when we have both, when we have the masculine and the feminine. And I like the little piece of the Tao Te Ching that I can remember because Gabrielle Roth quoted it so often. She would say, keep to the feminine, know the masculine, and use the masculine at times, but keep to the feminine. So you keep rooted in the feminine, and then you have the masculine available to use when it's needed. And we all need that.
We do.
Yeah. And I do think this is the rebalancing time. And the feminine is rising, but not to overthrow the masculine, but to rebalance. This is the time for all of us to rebalance individually and collectively. Yeah, may it be so. Oh my God. What a time we're in. What a time. May it be so. Tay? How do we say your name?
Ty.
Ty.
Yeah, I was interested.
Ty, you're kind of breaking up. It's quite hard to hear you.
Yeah, sorry, it takes a while to warm up.
Okay.
Hopefully it will warm up soon.
It is warming up, you're right.
Up. That's
yeah,
good.
Okay. Yeah.
Two things, I think. I had something in mind, but then when is it Nava? When Nava's showing yes, there's something that really makes me feel about that. And I know that's very much against the spirit of what's going on, and I appreciate that, and I don't want to step on anyone's sensibilities or delicacies. But I remember in the first lockdown, it was quite like late on. It was like, I don't know, like even like May or June or something, and I was walking down the street and I heard someone get angry, and it was the first time I felt normal for like months. I was like, yeah, oh, thank God for that. I'm back. Like, it's all right. I can be angry after all this kind of, which I know that's to do with my stuff and mothering or not being mothered and female. And, yeah, I'm feeling hot and I've been feeling quite cold. So now talking about it, that obviously means something deep inside me. The other thing was something, maybe that's a question around what I hear a lot said, and it's been really upsetting me and winding me up on 5 rhythms classes. A lot of the teachers will say, oh, if you need support, and it sounds a wee bit patronizing, like if you need support, then come to the screen. It's like, I come to the screen because I'm not dancing on my own. I want to see the community that I know is out there, and I know they're all dancing, and I want to see them and connect. If I didn't want that, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be signing up. I wouldn't, I'd just dance in my own space. So yeah, that's my question. Why does people say that?
You'd have to ask them, Ty. I don't know.
Or it was, is there a better way of thinking about it? I don't know. Yeah.
I can answer.
What comes to me to in reply to you, Ty, is that we are learning a whole new art of relating through this medium. And I think until lockdown, when it was all much more optional, whether we related to people via a device or not. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. I can FaceTime my brother on the other side of the world or whatever. But it was kind of optional. And now it's become an essential part of many of our lives, which is very different. And because we're starved of certain basic human needs, it's become more and more imperative to us to really learn how to meet those needs through this device. And we can manage without breath for a few minutes. We can manage without water for a few days. We can manage without food for a few weeks. How long we can manage without being part of groups that are hearty and intimate and sweaty and real is much harder to define. But I think there's a genuine human need, and I think it really is a need. It's not just a luxury, the need for company in ways that works for us. It's not a luxury. But we can survive much longer without noticing the ill effects than is the case with food, for instance, food, water, or air. Much longer. But what I'm seeing is increasing levels of deep down distress because that basic need for company is not being met. We're hurting. I am. And we had the last deep focus series that we finished towards the end of the last session. That the deep focus series thing is where there's 8 people. We sign up for 4 weeks. We work for 4 hours, 4 times, and it gets very intimate because there's only 8 of us, or 9 of us, including me. And when we finished this last one, we just wept for a while. because it was so painful to have had this incredibly intimate time and not been in the same room. And now we had to let it go. And it's like that brought up the painfulness of only having this medium to interact through. But it was combined with the genuine sense of intimacy that we had found together during those 4 times 4 hours. And something really shifted in me. It was heartbreaking. I was heartbroken, genuinely, to feel that and to feel how painful it is for us to have endured this year. Okay, most of us had a bit of a break in the middle between the first lockdown and what's happening now. And I mean, I know some of you are better off than I am in England. But, you know, like here where I am in England, a lot of people are breaking the rules now. Certainly the kids are. The kids are all up in the park, rolling over each other and biting each other. No, and I'm not going to stop them. So I think there's a level at which we're in pain and we're all trying to make the best of it. We're all trying to find ways that it can work. It reminds me of being underwater and having a straw sticking up into the air to breathe through. And it's like we can just about get some air. We can just about stay alive. There's just enough contact through this medium to meet that need a bit. But it takes some new skills. And it's like to use the straw, but we're underwater and just staving off drowning by breathing through a straw. To use that analogy, with skill, you can get the straw to kind of be a bit wider so you can breathe a bit more easily. But it takes some skill, and that's why I built in those little practices at the beginning of this call of just taking a moment to land and orientate yourself in your rooms. Oh yeah, this screen is part of a room and I'm here with my body, and little things like that, and finding ways to move with each other and having more permission to. I've developed my own set of little tricks and tips that I find helpful, and I hope are helpful for other people, and I hear that they are. But I guess my little ways and means irritate other people sometimes, and they probably don't tell me because we tend to not tell people those things, don't we? So like Ty, if you're dancing with some of your loved teachers and they're doing things that piss you off and don't work for you, on their behalf, I would implore you, tell them. See if you can do so with kindness. And if you've got a creative solution or something to ask for to help them, because they're only human, if you've got a better idea, but let them know how it's landing with you. Because this is one of the very, very difficult things about this medium is we don't get the nonverbal cues. We don't get the nonverbal feedback in the same way that we do when we're all in the same room together. When we're in the same room together, I can smell it when something I'm doing is not going down very well with the group. Literally the pheromones we give off change. I can see the whole body. I can see everyone's whole body, and I can hear the subtle quality of breath in the group. And none of that data comes back to the teacher. So we've got a very, very difficult job. There's a reason why this was my worst nightmare in 27, 28 years of teaching movement. It's a nightmare. So help them out, Ty. Especially if they're teachers that you respect and trust. Drop them a line and tell them what it's like for you and make some suggestions. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Ty.
Can I say something? I just wanted to understand thank you, first of all, for this. Yeah, raising that notion of intimacy and our needs to be intimate with each other. Very, very important. But if I understand, Tay, I don't know if I understood you. You were referring to when the teacher asked you to dance in front of other people. Is that what you were saying? Alone, or?
No, it's just I've heard quite a few teachers. They'll say it would almost be like they're saying a bad it's like a bad thing. If you need support, then come to the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see. So that was okay, because I was just, I had a different experience of when they kind of put you on the center and ask you to dance in front of everybody and share. And so I have such resistance for it. First of all, it's my rebellious nature, and then kind of my fear of being visible in front of others and really be naked in front of others. So I wasn't so sure. So there's two components.
Yeah, you see, and both of those things are attempts to create a sense of connection that we get automatically when we're in the same room together. And yeah, it's not easy. And I think we're all learning. It's like a whole new craft to learn for all of us who are leading groups over Zoom.
Yeah.
I guess there are probably going to be books written about it. Probably are books being written about it as we speak, and articles and stuff. But
well, it's funny because you were talking a while ago about the role of the teacher, and I can see why you feel kind of irritated and intimidated, because we are shifting into a whole new era where the teacher's role is really shifting, and we're working together here in a different capacity, and it's not a power over. It's not somebody who knows better how to live life better.
Yeah.
And
I'm doing another training right now. I'm training with Gabor Mate in his compassionate inquiry, and I'm loving that. It's really, really useful. But the main reason why I was attracted to study with him is because he's so human and so upfront about his own traumas and addictions. And I do think that the time of saviors, the leader as a savior, the Jesus model, that's done. We've done that. It's over now. And as you say, there's a time for, we're all in this together. Not that we're all the same, but we do all have one thing at least in common, which is that we're all faced with our own baby steps over and over again. We're all faced with our own shadow. We're all faced with our own fears. And there might be phases in our development, all of us as individuals. I'm talking particularly about anyone teaching, leading others in some way. I think there are phases of the learning and development cycle as a leader or any kind of teacher where you get to feel a sense of mastery and competence and like, yeah, I've got this. But if you think that you can hang on to that indefinitely, it's like dream on. Nope. It's going to be over. At some point, you're going to at least get taken down, if not fall flat in your face. And probably the more you're trying to hang on to that sense of competence, the harder the fall will be. It's like, no, none of us get to stay in that place of mastery and competence for very long, especially not now. The pace of change is so fast. It's like, I think of it, this time we're in as being like, we're rebirthing, collectively. The human race is attempting an evolutionary jump. I really believe that. And that's actually where my whole practice and path began, was late one autumn night in Sheffield on my bike, aged 19. And the wind in my hair, I had hair in those days, and nobody wore cycle helmets in those days. So the wind in my hair, and I suddenly knew that I was going to live through a time of immense and profound change for us human beings. And I knew that it was going to be my path in life to help that to happen in some way. And so first I went and studied environmental sciences and to try and save the planet, because that's what I was first aware of. And then doing that degree, I became aware that was, I couldn't see myself doing that, and we needed a miracle because we're so deep in the shit. And I thought, well, the only way a miracle is going to happen is when we all, as humans, deal with our own nature. So that took me into therapy, and from therapy, I got into movement practices, and yeah, there I went. But I do think that we're rebirthing and evolving ourselves, and we're at that stage in the birthing process now where there's no gaps between the contractions anymore. There's no rest points. That's over. It's like one contraction followed by the next and the next, relentless. And what that really means for us is like, next piece of inner work, and then the next one, and the next one, like on top of each other, several processes all at once, and like dealing with your mother and your father and your siblings and your ancestry and the collective stuff and what's happening at work and your neighbors and the ecological blah, and how it all affects you. And it's like everything's happening at the same time. And whew, wow. That's why, because it wasn't like that 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And that's why our practices have to evolve with the times. And on some level, we're all caught in the collective swirl. And then we have our each individual, totally unique piece of that. And of course, it's not going to be the same for everybody all the time. But there is that collective sense of overwhelm, I think, now. And of desperately needing moments of settling and integrating the enormous level of change that is being asked of all of us, individually and collectively. Just incredible. And just to keep our feet in the current, or to keep a sense of balance in the current, whatever the right metaphor is quite a task right now. Yeah. So thank you, Nava, for sparking that little rant of mine. Yeah, Dubravka.
I wanted to say something about when you said the basic human needs and our struggles. For the moment, I'm one of these people who live alone during the pandemic. I'm still sane. I haven't become.
Well done.
And because I think that the pandemic caught me maybe at a stage of my life where I know the resources to use that can help me in these challenging time. I think maybe 15 years ago it would have been different. And but what I want to say, I work from home, and I changed job in October, and I'm working basically online with people I've never seen in my life, which is an unusual experience. And I spend 95% of my time without living human beings for the moment. And on a rational level, I'm kind of, I'm coping, and I also see friends maybe once or twice a week. But the interesting thing is, when you said about the basic human needs, what started happening in the last few months is that almost every night, I dream of people. I dream of people from my past. I dream of my mother who passed away. I dream of past relationships. I dream of friends I hung around with 10 or 15 years ago. And it's so I find it really amazing how the deepest part of me is kind of reaching out and looking for people, while my mind is saying, yeah, it's fine, I'm coping well. And I just wanted to share and ask whether somebody else has some similar experiences.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Dubravka. And just before we respond to you, all of us, but especially you, Dubravka, just take a moment to check in with your body right now. Just check in with your body right now and notice how you feel. Just allow the circulation and vibration. And can you feel? And you're free to tell us something or not, as you wish. I'm not asking you particularly to tell us how you feel, but but you can if you wish.
Yes, I'm calming down. Of course, it is a little bit strange to talk to unknown people online about some deep stuff, and probably I was a little bit excited, and I'm calming down now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, personally, I felt the impact of your experience. You know, it's very easy to, as you said, rationalize it and tell yourself it's okay. But actually, being kept in isolation has been used for centuries as a form of torture. And it's not really okay for us. And so, you know, all of us just feel the impact of Dubravka's story. All of us just take a moment to. I'm sure we can all resonate with it to some degree. Yeah. So thank you for bringing it up, Dubravka.
I wanted to say thank you for your vulnerability and your courage to voice that so many people feel right now so strongly. I actually just saw it, I'm Canadian in Toronto, and it was a huge, on the Global Mail, which is a national newspaper, it was a huge article on the front page about how many people that live alone are suffering now. And I've noticed it all along when they're dancing with women that talk to us and had the courage to speak. So I think for speaking for yourself and speaking the truth, you are giving voice to so many other people that are afraid to speak of that experience, that we all experience, really, living alone or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nava. And Dubravka and all of us, I was saying earlier to Thais about those little sort of tips and tricks that I've brought into my work. Here's another one. I've started doing that so much in a way that I never used to. You know, like you can move the hands around, feel where they feel good, and and let yourself feel how that need for touch and holding, and I do think there's something that happens. In fact, I know there is. We've done studies about it. You know, mirror neurons. When we see other people holding themselves while we're holding ourselves, it goes a little deeper than if we're just sitting in a room by ourselves doing that. So let's all just, if you're willing to, if it feels okay to you, just hold yourself. Everybody, anyone who's willing to or feels drawn to experiment with that, and just see each other. And even though it's just breathing through a straw, it's a little bit more than nothing. Just look from one to the other of these other humans scattered around the world with their arms around themselves, and just seeing that simple human need for being held and having company, being touched. So, yeah, really thank you, Dubravka, for bringing that up. And to you and anyone else here who's living alone, and anyone who's watching the recording of this later who's living alone, you know, really, like, good luck. And I really hope you keep reaching out and finding ways to keep your sanity, because we're not built to stay sane alone. We outsource our sanity. We need other people. We need the reflection of other people to keep our balance and to know who we are. Yeah. So thank you, Dubravka. And so we're just coming towards the end of our time, and I'd just like to check those of you who have spoken, if you would like me to just blank out the bits of the recording, because I think I'm going to just share this online. I'm just going to put it up online. Any of you who have spoken who would like me to just blank out the bits where you were speaking, just put your hand up. And yeah.
Can I make a disclaimer?
Yeah.
I do love all the 5 rhythm teachers that I dance with, just in case.
Oh. Sweet. Thank you for saying that, Ty. Thank you. Dubravka, you okay about people hearing what you said? I think that'd be a real gift, actually, to many people. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I'm going to turn the recording off now because I want a little bit of just us before we say goodbye.
So that's it. Thank you for listening. And like I said, do share onto your friends and click like and all that kind of stuff. And check out the website, Facebook page, YouTube, and go well. See you down the road somewhere.